All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast here in the Ram's Den with Lawrence and I. Today we've got a topic that is Lawrence's topic, actually, is topic you raised. So I'll let you introduce it. What are we talking about today?
Well, so there's a couple reasons why this came up. So the thing we're talking about is I mean, we've expanded it a bit about how like the education system is failing people, etc., etc. But the original thing I proposed was like, could we come up with lessons that aren't taught to kids in school en masse? So like, part of like the state school system,
Mm,
um, that we think would be really valuable for kids to have,
mm,
but particularly thinking about how not having those lessons driven into us, especially at a young age,
mm.
will make us easier to govern and more susceptible to like manipulation.
More malleable
Um,
for people that
yeah,
wanna yeah want to take advantage
yeah,
of a sponge
exactly.
of a mind that's like basically a sponge, but not in a good way because it's been left
Yeah, exactly.
okay,
And
cool.
the reason the reason like this came up is because one, I've thought about it loads because I have learned so many so like during the
Mm,
pandemic, I got really into like personal finance stuff and sorted all my personal finances out and stuff like that.
all right.
And it just made
All
me think
right. Oh yeah,
and it
big
just
man here. Got all my shit together. Got all my I's dotted and all my T's crossed. Me, yeah, yeah. Just wanted to flex that a little
yeah.
bit, did you?
Yeah, and I started playing golf as well and I got the trousers and all. So, like I dove into that topic and that made me think like, why the hell was I not taught these basic like skills
Right.
at school? I was just like, how is this not like this is something that literally applies to everyone.
Yeah.
And, like why is it not taught to people? It's like it applies to everyone, but it applies to everyone on such a fundamental thing. Like you need money and to be able to manage your finances to exchange for like food.
Right.
So it's like
And
it's
water
such a basic
and
thing.
heating.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
things.
and we're not taught it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's almost like a well, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, there are some. I think some schools have some extracurricular classes that you can go to, where it's like
Yes,
after
they
school
yeah.
clubs where they talk about some things that can help you outside of the curriculum.
Mm,
But yeah, you're right. It's not part of the curriculum. They teach you maths. They teach you Pythagoras theorem. They teach you
yeah.
right angles and squares and circles and all that crap. But none of that helps you figure out how to manage your budget so you can afford
Yeah.
to have a roof over your head.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and it puts you into a state of, well, you've got to figure that stuff out yourself, really. But then that begs the question of what's the point of the schooling system if you have to figure so much out once you've left the schooling system?
Exactly. And but it's not just figure stuff out that's like luxurious. It's like basic stuff.
Yeah,
You're not
right, right.
yeah. It's like absolute basic stuff that if like an alien came to the earth and looked at like and asked you what are you taught in schools
Yeah,
and what do you need to know to be able to live a reasonable life and navigate
right.
society, they would be like, how are these two lists of things completely different?
It's a really good point.
It's
It's a really good
yeah.
point. And also, I mean, on the topic of is it ruining kids as well, and is it failing? Does the school system does fail people? I mean, it fails people in the ways we've just mentioned there, but it also ruins kids because the way it's set up, like you said, they're not. A lot of kids are smart and they switch on and they realize what they're
Mm,
learning is useless at a very young age.
yeah.
I'm one of those kids, by the way. I realized very young I started asking teachers those questions that they never want to hear. Why are we learning this? What's the
Mm,
point? And their usual response is because it's in the career. It's just you have to. It's important. And you're like, why is it important? I'm never gonna run Pythagoras theorem in my entire life. I'm
yeah.
most likely never gonna look into cell biology ever again. Now, in my case, I ended up being quite interested in biology anyway. So for me, biology is
Mm,
interesting, right? So that fit me. But for well, I don't know, 80% of kids, they'd probably much rather
yeah,
learn,
exactly.
right? Exactly. Something like personal finance, or
Yeah.
they'd rather hone the skills they naturally are gifted in to learn how to make a business off of
Mm,
it or make a career out of it, not be forced into these holes, right? These
Yeah, yeah,
square shaped kids forced into a circle shaped hole or a triangle
yeah.
and told you will do this now.
Yeah,
Right?
and I can hear some people, maybe well, I don't know how many people are watching, but I can hear, hypothetically, hundreds and hundreds of people, saying, "Oh, well, like, that some people will benefit from knowing Pythagoras' theorem because they'll go on to have a career to know that," and it's like,
Right,
that's
sure.
true. Some people will benefit from that, like, some people will benefit from knowing how, the inner workings of a cell, but the thing is that everyone benefits from learning personal
Mm,
finance, basic nutrition, all of this sort of stuff,
good
and
point.
it's not taught. That that
Yeah.
that stuff should be the core stuff. And like, yeah, also have lessons that teach kids like cell biology
Mm,
and how medicine works and stuff like Pythagoras theorem,
right.
but we should put more emphasis on the fact that we should cover these core basics.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, it just seems ridiculous to me that we're talking about, oh, some people will benefit from this when we're not even teaching people the things that everyone would benefit from.
Exactly. It's a really good point. We're learning advanced plant cell biology at
Yeah.
some point in this is in not primary, not like little tiny kid school, but
But like
when
high
high
school.
school level, when you're going from age what 12 to 14, 12 to 14,
Yeah,
15,
I mean,
something
it
like
will
that.
vary on the country, but that's
Right.
sort of, early teens.
Yeah, why would you be learning such advanced biology there when you don't have a choice to not do that? Or if you could choose to do it, then that would
Mm,
make sense. Like, I want to go and learn that advanced stuff. But you're right, there should be an absolute base that
mm,
makes sense for the real world, and it's lacking, and it leaves so many. And this is now, and how does this show itself in life? Well, I mean, look at the state of things as they are right now. Look at all these different scams and different behaviors of kids that are coming out of the system, especially now because here's the thing, right? When we were well, you're a little younger than me, right? So I can only talk for myself. I
yeah.
was just realizing, but for me, when I was a kid, the biggest risks of not getting the right prep in terms of like schooling and not getting the right mental prep were going into the world ill prepared, maybe ending up with a not I don't know, job that you didn't really want to do and
Yeah.
whatever. And the world was, I feel like everyone says this, right? But I feel like the world was a safer place for that kind of ill preparation back when I was a kid. At the time, I felt like it wasn't, but now I look back and yeah, I don't think the world was that dangerous for a kid coming out of school without much prep. Now, though, kids are at more risk than the most risk I think they've ever been in history, aside from times of war,
Mm,
obviously, where literal bombs are dropping down. But I'm talking about
yeah,
like
yeah.
in times of peace, kids are still at war right now. They're at war with themselves, they're at war with everybody else. Social media has literally just opened up the floodgates of verbal war.
Yeah.
Warfare, like mental warfare, psychological warfare. Every ad is trying to get them to buy something or get their parents to buy
Mm,
something for them. The other people that they go to school with are competing for popularity with likes and shares and followers. They have an entire business online that is not making them any money, but it's social currency that they have to vie for now,
yeah.
right? So this is right now we're in a pinnacle time where these mistakes by the education system, as in the past, they could have got away with it. They'll be all right. They'll get a trade.
Mm,
They'll learn how to, they'll go be a plumber or something, or they'll learn a manual labor trade, or they'll find something. They'll find everything's going to be okay. They'll get a family. They'll be all right. They'll do all that crap, whatever. Nowadays, psychological warfare and is huge, and that
mm.
I think that's the main risk for this these
Yeah,
days.
and like, yeah, and like in the British context as well. I mean, I don't know what the situation was in other countries. I think it was similar in America,
Mm,
but not so long ago, the general like economic situation was different as well
right.
because
Oh yeah, of
um
course. Yeah, yeah.
back in the day, as you call it, a whole family could live off one income.
Right.
Now, like you can't do that.
No.
Like property is way more expensive, all of this sort of stuff. So it's like, yeah, the amount of friction just in general life for you to be in terms of economics for you to be able to maintain a basic standard of living. Like
Mm,
for most people, that includes having a roof over your head, having a family, having, a social life that you enjoy, being able to take, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 reasonable holidays a year, something like that.
Mm,
This is not like it seems like it's a lot harder for people to be able to do that
right.
on one income. Whereas back in the day, when places like Brighton or Blackpool were having their heyday, it's
Yeah.
sort of Costa del Blackpool type thing, then it was like, you could do that on one income.
Right, right, right.
And now it's just not possible.
No, I mean you wouldn't even it wouldn't yeah, you could get a probably a bog standard job at any old business and not be super high up or any kind of managerial or anything like that. And yeah, you'd probably have a pretty good living the good living
Mhm.
conditions, a good quality of life. You'd be able to save up to buy whatever you want, a car, a house. You'd be able to I know this isn't something you want, but a lot of people want to have families and right?
Exactly, yeah.
And they'd be able to do that on a basic salary from a basic job.
Mm,
And people were that's how the or at least I think across most of the world, at least most of the West. Let's stick to the West because I'm pretty sure most of the West was in that boat of yeah, this is how it is. So
mm,
yeah, now more than ever, the lessons need to be sorted out, but they're really not still. And this is where you see kids coming out. And I said this in the last podcast we did, where kids are now instead of monetizing and being taught how to monetize and make a career out of the things they're good at or they're interested in, so that the saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. that
yeah,
that
yeah,
is true to some extent. You'll still have bad days, but at least you'll be doing what you feel aligned with, and that's really important for all people to be happy
yeah,
and
yeah,
and to prosper, right? So
yeah.
instead of teaching kids that and honing the skill they have and customizing the schooling experience or with the basics first and then customizing as they learn the basics and figure out where they want to
Mm,
go after that, it's one size fits all. And then you end up with kids coming out because they don't know how to monetize their skills, they come out and monetize their stupidity, which in today's
mm,
world pays well. It pays really well to be a fucking moron online, right?
mm,
And because other kids same similar age, they they bum off it, to put it
mm.
in a. I don't know if you ever said that at school. We used to say that,
I have no idea what that
bum
means.
off it. Like you'd say, oh man, it's a really funny one. I just because I'm thinking about when I was younger and we used to say that a lot. So
I feel like that might be a northern thing.
yeah, so if you say like you got a new Game Boy and you're playing Pokemon Yellow,
Yeah.
which was mine, my big one, and then you'd say, oh, I fucking love this game, it's so good, I love this game. And someone would say to you, well, you're proper bumming off that game, you. Which is, it's not a negative thing necessarily. It's just that you're really, really
Yeah.
enjoying it. So but it is negative if you say you really enjoy someone's company. It's like, oh, I really like hanging out with that dude. That guy's really nice and stuff. And they go, oh, you bumming off him, aren't you? It's not a gay thing, by the way. I don't know what it actually means. It's just, we used to just say bumming off it. I,
So it you I'm still not getting it. So it's like you would say someone's bumming off
yeah.
something if they just like they just really enjoy and obsess about something to
Yeah.
maybe like an unhealthy degree.
Um, okay. Urban Dictionary, I've just got it up, says, this might be a very specific geographical location slang term, but it's used in northern England. There you go. To mean when a
Yeah,
person
yeah.
or people like a thing too much. It's not unlike the saying, then why don't you marry it? So my husband is
Okay,
always
okay.
my husband is always on his PS4. He bums off that new COD game. When did everyone start bumming off Nutella? There you go. That's it. I actually was just thinking to myself as I was saying it, I was like, oh no, is this like a homophobic thing? Because we had a lot of that as kids, as I'm sure you did. But then actually, no, it's not. It's actually not. This is, I don't know where it came from, but
I mean, I think it does come from bumming,
I don't know
obviously.
about that because it's a positive. And trust me, when we were kids, there was not a lot of positive about bumming. It was usually the opposite. But I'll maybe look up the origin of it anyway. But yeah.
So I think when I was growing up, the most like similar term to that we had is someone to bang out. So like
Wait,
if
what?
someone is
Bang
a
to
bang
like
out,
not that
for
hurt
banging
them.
something out. Huh? No, no. So like for example, like using Call of Duty again, we used to
Yeah.
say this all the time. Like bang out, it was very it started in gaming culture, but then it went into, you would use it for anything. So if someone was if someone was like, they'd go home from school every day, they just jump straight on Modern Warfare 2 or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, oh, they're a bang out.
No, I've
They're
never
just
heard
banging
that.
out Call of Duty.
Never
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
that one.
Or if you wanted to take it up a notch, they're a sweaty bang out.
Never heard that one, man. That's totally.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
that at all. Well,
I've not heard kids say that for years, but like
right.
when I was a kid,
Yeah.
we'd all, everything's a bang out.
I
Yeah.
guess kids don't say bumming off it anymore. But my point was anyway that kids, they bum off each other when they do this kind of stupid stuff. Bum off, not
Yeah, yeah.
bum. Although to be honest with you, mate, 2023 with the lines are blurring for kids. I think they're being. This
Yeah.
is another thing we get into. What the fucking hell? What else are they being taught? But yeah, I don't know if we want to go down that road. But they bum
See
off
where it
each other
goes.
being stupid, right? And then the kids realize they can make money from being stupid. This is how you get these idiot streamers, you get these idiot TikTokers who genuinely
Yeah.
get sponsorship deals, they get paid monetization from these and ads and all that kind of stuff for being
Yeah.
complete and utter morons. And then because the schools are not actually prepping them, mentally prepping them for a world where all of this is, and teaching them that, hey, this is really dumb and you could do something, right? I don't know, let's hone your skill, let's hone your interest, and you could make money from something that's genuinely productive. And instead of
Yeah.
that, they just tell them, don't do that, but the alternative, we don't have one for you. So they they get they make their own way, and their own way is being swayed by all these idiots online now. And this is that is ruining kids for sure, man. I mean, you and I are online a lot. We both do social media content.
Yeah,
And
but I feel like both of us grew up. Well, you are definitely a significant amount, and me still quite a significant amount offline.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I feel like the really fundamental periods of our childhood were not spent with the internet being a major feature.
right. The point I was
So I
gonna,
feel like we're kind of being saved by that.
for sure, for sure. And the point I was gonna get at though is that when in my comments section, I said this in the last. I feel like I'm maybe repeating myself from the last stream, but it's still relevant. That the majority of the comments that I get are probably coming from kids, and trust me when I say school has failed these kids. Right? They misspell all the time. They're literally sometimes these comments are edited and it's still spelled incorrectly. So that's one thing. I'm serious. They do copy paste. They don't even have their own opinions most of the time. They've copy pasted someone else's comment because they think that's how you communicate now.
Oh, they're like retweeting it, but on YouTube.
Basically, yeah. And they have
wow.
these cool comments ready to go, just ready to fire off wherever they want to put them or whatever. That's how they do it now. So yeah, I mean, schools aren't prepared for this, and they haven't been for years. I mean, considering that when I was a kid and when you were a kid, they were still ill prepared to actually give kids what they need to be successful in life. Now it's just pathetic. It's next level ridiculous how they just don't have any kind of notion of how to prep someone for life, because they didn't know then, and it was a lot simpler then. Now it's hella more complicated, and they're just completely lost, right?
Yeah, and also the thing is that another sort of thing that's become more prevalent that makes it even harder is that now that we have a 24-hour news cycle, the world is so interconnected. So when we were being taught at school, this was maybe somewhat of an element, but before the internet, it wouldn't have been. Is that so? When you were teaching a kid at school prior to the internet, like let's even say 1970s, 1980s, whatever, before. I think the internet was around then, but it was still like a military technology, right? So, but it wasn't like it wasn't by any means like widely used by people.
Right.
So when you were teaching a kid, there would be certain things, that are happening in the background culture that may distract them,
Right.
or even personal issues like family issues, stuff like that. And that's things that school did sometimes have to deal with. But nowadays, you've not only got personal issues at home, stuff like that, background culture, but you've also got every kid is hooked up to social media and like some form of news, so that every time a new influencer comes around, every time there's a new craze, the school is having to deal with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I was at school, we had one craze that came around that schools really had to deal with, and that was happy slapping.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you know.
Yeah,
You know what that
we
is?
had the same thing. We also had the getting
Exactly. Yeah.
tangoed. Did you have that?
No, what's getting tangoed?
There was an ad campaign. So I don't know what they were thinking. Where basically it was tango, the drink tango. You know that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah.
they
It's like
were.
Fanta. Yeah.
It was like in the ad campaign, they were running up to people in this. I'm pretty sure it was on the TV, and they were slapping them both hands, the side of the face, and then saying "you got tangoed," and that was the thing. Eventually, they pulled the ad. Obviously, eventually, I don't know how it even ever got out there, but it was too late.
Yeah.
Too late. There were kids bust eardrums and stuff like that. Kids going deaf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Because
Oh, shit.
you're doing it hard. You know, it wasn't. They weren't lightly slapping. They were running up behind the other kids and bam, both ears at the same time.
Yeah, and that's actually really disorienting. Like, isn't that part of some really aggressive like fighting techniques?
Probably,
People
yeah.
actually do that to disorientate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was
that's crazy. I mean, happy slapping was just you'd go up and slap someone and record it on your. You know, it was when we first had video camera phones.
right, right. Yeah, I remember happy slapping too.
Yeah,
I remember that. We
yeah,
had the
yeah.
similar
But when I was a
thing,
kid,
yeah.
yeah, when I was a kid, that was really the only craze that the school had to be like, right, we need to deal with this. Whereas now, every time you get a new Andrew Tate, every time you get a new like craze on TikTok that's bleeding into schools,
Yep.
that it's something that the school is going to have to deal with, and it distracts from the learning. So the environment that learning is being done in now seems to me much more difficult.
I bet. And I get you know, kids like, you know, when you were at school and a kid would say, you know, a bad word or a phrase they'd learned off of a program they shouldn't be watching, and everyone would be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like, wow, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I said that, right? Now it's like you'll get kids who just watched an Andrew Tate video come into school and shut up, bitch. shut up, you fucking bitch. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, to the teacher, and then like they'll be like, "What the hell?" Like, I bet loads of kids have been doing that because
Yeah,
they don't know any better.
I mean, I've got friends who are teachers
not funny.
and family as well.
It's
No,
not funny, but it
like,
kind of is. But it obviously, and this is the thing: if we kind of can't help but laugh a little bit, how do you think the other kids are acting?
yeah.
Man, that's rough to be a
But,
teacher, to be a female teacher, especially with kids coming in saying
definitely.
that shit. Oh my God.
Yeah. So we've diagnosed the problem, or we've outlined some of the problems. Should we get into some of the things that we think
to fix
some lessons that should be taught? Yeah, to fix it. So I've literally written out a list. I don't know what you've done, but I've literally written out a list. So I was going to go through mine one by one and tell you why I think that they would be good for kids to learn.
All right. Well, let's do them one at a time, and then we can see if I've got something to say. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the one thing I want to say before I say all of these is that, like I was saying before, some schools sometimes will teach these things, but usually they will be optional things, or it will be like in a private school where, you know, you've paid, so you get like a higher standard of education.
Like
but
you did,
all
right?
of these things, no, I was in a state school.
I'm just trying to mess with you. Your accent says otherwise, though. You do have a very private school accent.
Well, I have a southern accent.
It's not.
I have a middle class southern accent.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just any southern accent. You're not like, all right, cock. No. How do they speak? How do they? You know, like you fucking slag.
Well, you're doing cock.
What are you fucking looking at, slag?
Well, that's Essex.
Yeah, well, yours is not
anyway,
a rough Southern English accent. Yours is like a fucking.
Okay.
What's his name? Fucking Notting Hill. Southern. What's that guy's name?
What,
the actor Hugh?
Jack Whitehall.
Hugh.
Oh, Hugh Grant.
Hugh. Exactly.
No,
just the
he's
way
like
you said his name. Just the way you said his name was him.
No.
Oh, Hugh Grant.
No, the thing is that
Grant.
when a southerner and a northerner are talking together, the southerner always sounds way posher than they are, because northerners just sound like.
Go on, say it. I know what you want to say.
Yeah, less posh.
Monkeys.
Less posh.
That's what you want to say, isn't it? I know it. I could tell you wanted to say it.
Shaved monkeys.
All right. I'm sorry. I derailed
anyway,
you, didn't I? Okay, so
no. So the only thing I was going to say was that, yeah, these things may be taught in some places, but these things I think should be staples.
Sorry.
All right.
I just read a comment. It was so funny. I need to.
What, a comment in the live chat?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see any of
It
the live
says.
chat. How many people are...
It
Okay.
says, it's from Robin Hood. I have to pause for this. He says, the Canada school system is going down hard. People are starting to call us Tranada.
Oh, dear.
Sorry. I just never heard that before, and it caught me completely off guard. All right. Come on. Number one. How can we improve? Start with your number one. Let's get to it. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the first two are actually quite related, although they are slightly different, but I'm going to lump them in. So I think that a staple for kids to learn is communication skills and conflict resolution. Like, the primary thing that you will do in your life is communicate with other people, whether verbally, non-verbally, and we're not taught how to do that. We're not taught how to like read someone else's body language. Like, sure, we pick it up somewhat naturally, but there are also like there's also
Cues.
a benefit to having cues. There's also a benefit, especially for people who actually have impaired social understanding, like autistic people. A formal like education in this sort of stuff can actually be like useful to some people, not to all people obviously, but like it can definitely be helpful to some people, but also just general communication, conflict resolution. Like, I once went to a conflict resolution webinar when I was involved in some animal rights organization, and they wanted to have one so that our workspace, had like people were better communicators and stuff. And I've forgotten them now, but the woman who led it taught us like actual protocols, like actual steps you can take in a conversation.
Right.
Not like you're in the conversation, you'll be like, right, now we have to do this step, and then you do the step, and now, but it's just steps you can have in your mind of like, oh, okay, this is where we're at in the conversation. And if we want it to be like, if we want to reach a healthy resolution, we've got to try and touch on this, this, and this for me, and this and this for that person.
Right.
And it's like, that's just not formally taught in making sure someone's understood, making sure someone's they feel validated and heard, but also being able to put what you need from the situation and conversation across. It's just not taught in schools.
There's two reasons I agree with that. The one reason is that everything in society currently that you see on social media, YouTube, wherever you see it, is an us versus them mentality across the board. Any kid that's been exposed to Andrew Tate it's us versus them. Any kid that's looking at Donald Trump, it's us versus them, or Joe Biden, even us versus them. It's, if you're in America, it's Democrats versus Republicans. If you're in England, it's lefty versus right. It's the progressive versus conservative. Everything is us versus them, and kids are not being taught that there are middle grounds, there is nuance, and there are outcomes where everybody can win. And this is the goal should never be to destroy and crush somebody, because then you're just creating more of the diversion. The goal should always be, especially for kids, to be, how can we find a way where everybody is happy, or at least that everybody feels heard, even if you don't find the way where you will agree. At least you've both been heard, and there'll always be some common ground. Always, no matter who you're talking to, no matter how ideological they are in one way or the other, there'll always be something you can agree on, right? Always. And then the second
you
reason,
heard it here first. David's got common ground with Nazis and jihadists.
Though you shoot me for saying this, but I bet you that given enough time with someone, the most disgusting person on earth, forget if someone's like a modern Nazi. I'm talking you could go and visit a mass murderer psycho in prison, and give it enough time, you'll find something you have in common. So that's
no, I get you.
You know what I mean? It's possible. And then the other thing, the only other reason I agree with you is we had this big thing recently, at least in the last 5 years, of this whole Me Too movement, and this big awakening, realizing that a lot of women don't feel like their bodies are respected by men, and a lot of men don't understand what they've done is a problem. In a lot of cases, there's these gray area cases where both parties seem to have a different perspective of what actually happened. And from the men's point of view, it's like, well, at the time, you kind of, everything seemed okay, and everything went along with it. At the woman's point of view, you should have picked up on the signals that I was only going along with it because I was scared. If kids are taught from a young age how to read body language, like you said, and how to sense and be sensitive as to whether or not somebody's having a good time or not, then these problems are going to be just gone in a number of generations, because they're going to, well, apart from the ones who are horrible, who actually don't care, but the basic knowledge of what to look for is really, really important, for sure. So this could potentially, like I said, alleviate a lot of these problems that have been
Yeah.
rising up. So yeah.
Yeah, and one other way, I think what I'm about to say overlaps massively with what you've already said, but I think one way that this makes us um, easier to manipulate or govern is that, like you were saying, there's so much division in society, and a lot of that division comes from not being able to communicate with each other properly.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, most people who disagree with each other will have a lot or some common ground, but we're not taught to communicate in ways where you recognize that and appreciate that.
Right.
And I think if we did that, the society would be less divided.
For sure.
But obviously, classic divide and conquer.
Right. Well, if they keep,
Not that I'm saying, yeah, not that I'm saying this is being done intentionally. I'm just
oh,
saying,
it probably
since
is.
society is, yeah, yeah, it
Right.
may be to some degree, but like since society is divided, that is useful,
Right.
even if it's not done
Well,
intentionally, but it may be.
it's like, yeah, it is useful. Absolutely. The people stand to benefit from having, if the working class, which is the majority of most populations, are too busy fighting each other, then they're going to be too busy to do anything about you and your fat, rich,
Yeah,
elite
yeah,
ass
yeah,
who's
yeah,
exploiting them. Right. So, yeah, of course.
yeah.
A couple people in the comments pointed out, by the way, that apart from veganism, where it is us versus them, and there is a complete and utter divide there, dude. Like, guys, listen, think about this. In outreach videos, if you watch my videos, Cliff Grant videos, Joey Carbstrong videos, Earthling Ed videos, vegan muscle outreach videos, if you watch Ellie Vegan Gays doing outreach, if you watch even
We get the
Lawrence
point.
does outreach for antinatalism, go and look at people doing outreach, and what are they trying to do? They're trying to find common ground.
Find common
Think about
ground,
the
yeah, and then you
question.
work from there.
Absolutely. Look at the
Yeah,
questions we ask them. How does this make you feel? It makes me feel bad. Why do we ask them that? Because we want to agree. Yeah, I feel bad too. I feel bad too. We both feel bad. Are you against animal abuse? Yes, I am. Great. Me too. This is literally finding common ground with people
yeah,
to try and build off of it, and that's the whole
yeah,
nature of
yeah,
outreach. It's not about us versus them, unless they turn it into that, and then in which case you
yeah,
can end up going down that road, and then it becomes something that you just do for content, just try and get a video out of it, because when
yeah.
the second it becomes us versus them, it's game over for that conversation. Basically, you want to
Mhm.
avoid that if you want a good outcome. But yeah, just wanted to
Yeah,
point
yeah,
that out.
exactly. Yeah. No, no, 100%. Did you have anything else to say on like conflict resolution
No, I
communication
think
or?
it's a great point. I think no, that's it. Good. I
All
agree.
right. So the next one I've actually already touched on, which is financial
Okay.
literacy. And I just think this one is so important. Like, so when I came out of school, I did like there's just some basic like financial things that everyone will have contact with,
Mm.
and you need to know them because they're really important parts of your life. So one is tax. Like like I was not taught about the tax system when I was in school, and that's such a basic thing.
I remember
Pensions.
getting my first paycheck and being like, what the fuck is this? Why am I getting paid so much less than I thought I was going to get paid?
Yeah,
And then it
exactly.
happened
Yeah, yeah. I was
again
like
after
that.
a couple of years. I had a couple of years in a job in Manchester working for a massive company, paid pretty well.
Yeah.
And then I got a big bonus because I did a big sale. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get so much fucking big bonus. And they took so much of it. They took
Yeah,
so,
so
because it was
much, yeah.
above the bracket or whatever. Oh
Exactly.
my
Yeah,
God, man, I was gutted. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
totally right there.
Everyone when they get their first pay slip and realize that tax exists, everyone becomes a bit more libertarian.
Yeah, man. It changes you a little.
So, yeah, exactly. You're never the same after that moment. Um, so yeah, taxes, pensions are another really big one. Like people just aren't taught about
Mm,
pensions. A lot of people, at least in the UK, the only reason a lot of people actually have pensions is because they are automatically enrolled in it by their
right,
workplace. If that wasn't put in place, then a lot of people would not. Well, maybe some people would never even think to set one up,
right.
but a lot of people would do it later in life
Mm,
when actually really the wealth in your pension comes about from time
mm,
and being able to compound interest, which you really need to start it early to benefit from that.
right.
Um, so yeah, pensions is another one. Just long-term investing, being able to like grow wealth, rather than just get money from trading your time for it.
Right.
Um, this it's just like basic financial literacy that people are not taught about. Like even tax efficiency. Like there are so many things you can do to make your finances more tax efficient,
Right.
that are completely legal. Um, and yeah, just people just aren't taught about it. I don't really have much else to say on that one. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm just annoyed that people aren't taught
I mean,
that.
well, why would they be? Because the thing is, the opposite of all of that benefits the ones who tax. It benefits the banks because then you're going to need to go to them for loans because you don't have any of
Yeah,
your own money, and they can put these
yeah,
big interest on it. Benefits all these payday loans because you're living paycheck to paycheck because you've not learned how to manage your money,
yeah.
and and it benefits the country in that you won't be able to retire very early because you've no pension and you'll have to keep working until you literally can't not work, basically.
Mm.
So yeah, there's no. The thing is, like the school curriculums are usually put together by the government, right? So why would
Well,
they?
and we know that there's also influence from lobbying as well. Like
Yeah,
we see that with Adam Wag
right. So why
and
would they
like the
teach
the,
you?
the food plate thing.
Right. So why would they teach you, like you said, the tax thing specifically, or how to manage your taxes so that you, um, whatever you get a better deal out of it? Why the
Yeah,
hell would
yeah,
a
yeah,
school teach you that? That's something that they
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Government doesn't want you to learn that. They want you to pay
You
taxes.
know, You know what was even crazier is so there was a personal finance YouTuber who I started watching during the pandemic and I still watch now.
Right.
And he spoke about, when I think someone one day in the Q&A asked him like why he started his channel.
Mm,
And one of the one of the answers he gave is that um he literally did I think it was an economics degree,
mm,
or a finance degree. And he came out of it being able to get a job in finance and understanding certain parts of finance,
right.
mostly business finance. But when his personal finances were a mess, and he was saying a lot of people who do those degrees, their personal finances are a mess because even in those types of degrees, generally they're not taught about personal finance, like how
Right.
to actually personally. So he was saying there was someone. So he worked in a financial organization. It was to do with uh, helping people who had debts.
Mm,
So they weren't. I don't think they were debt collectors, but they would advise people who had debts.
right.
And he was saying that, and he also worked in a property business as well. And he was saying that some of the most, intelligent, financially speaking people work that he's ever met worked in those companies with him, and he would regularly find out that they didn't even know how to set up basic like bank accounts,
Right. Okay.
like an ISA, for example. Like I don't know if a lot of the viewers will know what an ISA is because it's a UK term,
Mm,
but like an ISA is basically just a savings account, but you don't pay tax on the money that goes in and out of it, um, and any of the investments that are wrapped inside it. And even those people didn't know how to set one up. And it's literally like it's so basic to set one up. So it's like even people who are like well
mm,
educated in finance may not even know personal finance,
right.
which to me seems like the most important type of finance. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Well,
crazy.
I agree with you on that one. That's something that I still don't have a clue about any of that. Genuinely, no idea
Yeah,
whatsoever. So I
yeah.
would have loved to have had the opportunity to learn that in school for
Yeah,
sure. So I
exactly.
totally
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. Well, the thing is, you're in a harder situation because you're like moving around a bit more, right? So it must be a clusterfuck
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
no, totally. No, you got it wrong, man. So as an animal rights activist, I've got a pension fund set up. The government sorts me out with that. Obviously, I've got this regular income, got this savings account, which I'm
Yeah, yeah,
earning
yeah.
regular interest on with all the money that I get from doing activism and being and making YouTube videos for about veganism because there's such a
Mm.
huge international market. Everybody wants to watch videos about
It's
veganism,
a
right?
cash
So
cow.
it's cash cow exactly. I just earn just tens and tens of thousands every month from these from the videos, right? Yeah. Now, when I hit like 80, I am royally fucked. I don't even know what to do. I don't know. I just hope I live somewhere where the government's like, "Oh, don't worry, we've got a thing for
Yeah,
over 80s where we'll just give you an allowance and you'll be all right." 'Cause
yeah.
I'm gonna have fuck all else to go to.
Well, or let's just hope all your Patreons forget that they've signed up to you and it just keeps on ticking over.
Oh man, that'd be funny. Yeah, who knows? Anyway, that's for 90-year-old me to think about. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, what's your? We
Um,
let's get through some of these points. I'm worried about the time, so let's crack on
okay,
then.
cool. Yeah, I've lost track of time. I don't know how long we've been going
40
for, but
minutes.
okay, cool. So next one is critical thinking. I won't go into it because I think that one's obvious, right? Like
Yeah.
why you should be. Do you have any particular thoughts on
No,
that?
critical thinking skills are really important, and the kids
Yeah,
don't get taught these at all, which is why you see all these
yeah,
morons on TikTok. We've been through that, the stupidity of
yeah,
kids on social media, direct
yeah.
consequence of them having no critical thinking skills. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just to give some examples for people for critical thinking, like just understanding like basic logical fallacies,
Mm.
like appeal to nature, stuff like that. Maybe how to understand like an argument, all that sort of
I
stuff.
think we should give an example of
Um,
what that is as well. Like appeal to nature is, oh,
oh,
why do you do that? Because it's natural. But that's
exactly.
not
Yeah.
actually a good reason to do anything because it's natural. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. It's not, but most people fall
Exactly. Yeah.
prey to that mistake
Yeah.
that something's good because
Yeah.
it's natural.
It's putting value on the status of something being natural, whereas something being natural is irrelevant to whether an action is good or bad or is valuable.
Right. Yeah,
Basically.
exactly. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
are teaching kids how to avoid those and when to, or at least not
Yeah.
how
Those
to avoid,
pitfalls.
but when to know so that when someone says to them, like, wait a minute, are you not just appealing to
Yeah.
nature? They go, oh, yeah, I was. And they can admit it because they've
Yeah.
learned that's what that is.
Exactly. And this will be useful beyond having like debates and stuff with people.
Yeah, just life.
So nature is a really good example because if you look at marketing, something being called natural is constantly used in marketing to make it seem better,
Mm,
right? And like that is not necessarily the case. So it even helps you, to not fall victim to marketing from companies and
for
stuff.
sure. Yeah.
Um, the next one was I just called government. So I think it's just so I actually did a like it was called an AS level. I don't know if it was called that.
Yeah, it's
Did,
AS
did
level. It's
you-
yeah, it's college,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's like a short course
Yeah.
in college for people who don't know what that is. So I did do government and politics there. I've forgotten a lot of it, but when I did when I did that, just understanding the basics of how government and the decision making
Mm,
legislative process in your country works,
mhm.
it just helped me understand the news I was watching so much better because I would understand a bit more about who's responsible for who,
Right.
I mean, who's responsible for what
Yeah.
in terms of decision making and stuff. Um, so I think, yeah, it should be mandatory to teach kids basic workings of government, their rights as well, like what rights you have. I think people just aren't taught what their rights are,
Right.
and also like some basic understanding of how change is created in society as well,
Yeah, I agree.
which I think would be useful. And I mean, basic literacy on that in veganism as well is good. Like vegans understanding how society
Mm,
changes and the mechanisms behind that.
yeah.
That would be really useful.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I again, we weren't taught anything about how government works really in schools. Not that I can
Yeah,
remember anyway, so it can't have been anything major. Maybe it
yeah,
was mentioned, but wasn't actually part of the
and
curriculum.
yeah,
It
and I think that would be that is makes society easier to govern for obvious reasons.
right.
And I think if people actually understood how the political system worked, you would have higher voting turnouts because voting turnouts are really low in the UK
Mm.
generally.
It's
They can
just
often be
so
quite low.
painfully boring. And who was it who said
Yeah.
this? Someone said this in a podcast. They said they purposefully make politics as dry and intellectual or seemingly intellectual and philosophical or whatever. I don't know what the words are, but they make it so that the way they speak, it's difficult to
Mm,
understand, and it takes a lot of training to understand what they're saying and why they're saying it and how it works. And it could be simpler, and it could be used with simpler language, and it could all be very easy to digest and actually
yep.
interesting and entertaining. But it's not, because that makes it more difficult for someone like you or me to get in, right? And
Yep.
it's difficult to teach in schools because it's so dry and boring. And
Yeah.
it's all dry and boring because it's difficult to teach, and that's good because then people do
Yeah.
as they're told. That's what I don't know if that's much
Yeah.
of a conspiracy theory necessarily, but I think from what I know about human nature and how quickly people I've seen, even within the vegan world, when some vegans learn some fancy new words, they tend to really enjoy kind of lecturing people in that way. And this is not just
Mm.
shade on veganism, on vegans. I'm just calling this because I've seen this within our
Example.
world.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
probably happens in other places. For example, when vegans learn about speciesism or and they
Sentience is a big one.
right, exactly, they tend to use
Yeah,
these words rather than just explaining the concepts, which would be a lot easier for somebody to understand, but they go for those
yeah,
words instead because it kind of elevates them a little bit, like intellectually, and then
yeah,
it creates that. So if we even fall victim to it from time to time, then I mean, come on, these people, private schooled, hyper rich elites,
yeah,
of course they speak in those ways because they know that your average dum dum like
yeah,
me
yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand it really, or it would take a long time to figure it all out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of them are, on camera and ask for their opinion the whole time. So there's that pressure there to seem smarter than you
Right.
are as well,
Yeah.
because the limelight is on you.
It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson
Um,
whenever he talks about animal rights, he just goes off on with
yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah,
fancy nonsense.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I was going to say something else on that, but I have forgotten what
Probably
that was,
wasn't
so we can
important.
move
Don't worry
on.
about it.
No, I don't think it was. Um,
Just being a prick.
so the next one I think is interesting, and I think you might have a lot to say on this one.
Oh,
I didn't quite know what to call it,
okay.
so I just went broad base and called it self development.
Okay.
But I think there are quite a few things that fall into this, which would be super useful for everyone to learn, especially at a young age.
Okay.
So the first one, now this I think comes from my own biases because I am super interested in this, although I'm not the best at practicing it. But I think meditation and certain Buddhist teachings would be super useful to instill in kids. Not force them, but
Mm,
just give them the tools to be able to understand like what meditation is seeking, being able to understand your own mind more and just reflect on your own mind. Just the basic, like giving kids the basic understanding
right.
that you don't control your mind really in a significant way.
Yeah.
And one really easy exercise to give people to do to demonstrate this is sit down and for 30 seconds, close your eyes and for 30 seconds, don't think of anything.
Hmm.
Very few people can do that without a lot of dedication to like practicing that basically
Yeah.
because it's really hard just not to think of anything.
Yeah.
um and I think that teaching is quite good for kids because it just makes you understand a lot of people have this illusion that they are in control of their own mind,
Hmm.
and having the understanding that you're not always or a lot of the time in control of your own mind will make you more reflective and introspective, I think. So I think that's a good thing to instill in kids
Yeah.
from a young age.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say on that, or should I go on to my
No, we'll do. I mean, we're not like necessarily in a big rush. I just wanted to make sure we didn't
Oh, okay. All right.
I
Okay.
don't I didn't mean to like make you blast through. But this is an
No, no,
interesting
no.
one. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this one's a bit of a risky one.
Some people could call it woo woo. I
Right.
don't. I
Well,
think it falls into the category of what's called woo woo, but I think some woo woo is useful. I
so let me
think if we're
explain where
going
I
to call it
stand
that.
on this, right? Because look, there's nothing really that woo woo about calming the mind. And
Yeah.
even the most anti woo woo influencers out there, we've mentioned him a couple of times, Andrew Tate, would absolutely support people being in control of their own mind, whether that be
Yeah.
through, and I'm using him as an example because he's seemingly like a very, you know, anti kind of nonsense person, or at least that's what he claims to
Yeah.
be. And even he would agree with this. And there's a lot of people out there who are very, very based in terms of their views on being super, super rational or trying to appear that way. And they would always promote something like fitness for your mental health, or fighting to learn perseverance and discipline, or right. And all you're basically suggesting here is self-improvement through discipline, whether it be sitting still for 30 seconds to discipline your
Mm.
mind, or whether it be, you could say, going and completing super high level military training over
Yeah.
that takes multiple weeks because you've disciplined your mind and your body, right? So yes, do I want that in schools? Absolutely not. And the reason, and the only caveat to that is there is a potential problem with this, because so if you do send kids into some kind of this kind of high discipline training,
Mm.
You run the risk of kind of driving the child out of them, which would be really sad, right? So
Right. Yeah,
that's
I get
one
what you
thing.
mean.
So the other thing, that's one thing. That's one thing. The other thing, this is with purely the physical and mental discipline, like army training or whatever.
Mm.
With what you said with meditation, then the next thing I worry about is narcissism. Like, are you going to help? Are you, because basically, let's be honest here. Let's just say this. Let's just put this out there, okay? I'm sorry to say this, guys. I don't want to offend anybody, but in the self-help movement, the self-development world of meditation and chakras and woo-woo and also non-woo-woo, it is a lot of people within these spaces, within these communities are maybe not narcissists, but they are self-obsessed. It's all about how I'm feeling right now, and
Mm.
oh, this makes me feel this way, and I'm going to go here and do this because I want this, and I want you to be like this because of my energy. And do you really want to instill in kids this
Mm.
it's all about me and my feelings, and they go home to their parents
Well,
go to bed. I'm feeling some agitation from your request of me to go to
mm.
bed, and I would appreciate, you really, you want that in a kid.
Yeah.
So
Well, so the only thing the thing I'd say to that is that I realize that meditation has become linked with that sort of stuff,
right.
but that's the reason I specifically said Buddhist meditation, because Buddhist meditation is
Okay.
essentially, I mean, it has several strands, but it's centered around the idea of ego death.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
literally, becoming narcissistic is literally the opposite of the pursuit of Buddhist
So
meditation.
Vipassana would be great then for kids. Vipassana
Yeah,
meditation.
so that's not just Buddhists that do that, but a lot of Buddhists do Vipassana or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I was talking
So
about.
sure.
But I think sending a kid to like 10 days, or something like that is a bit. I think obviously, there can be some sort of entry
Yeah,
level
of
sort
course,
of
of course.
kid version.
So
Um,
the reason I brought all that stuff up as well is that I do also worry that this whole kind of narcissistic self-obsession that comes with this, there's been an overcorrection in society, and we're going to get into this maybe in a separate podcast, but I want to just like tease
yeah,
people with it now and have a think about it. But I'm viewing more and more that from me being young to me being here where I am now over the years. When I was younger, there was mental health wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing. I mean, it existed obviously, but it wasn't spoken about. No one, like, if you were being sad, or if someone said something mean to you and you felt sad, people would just be like, "Stop being a pussy," right? You're being soft. It's just words. Grow up. That was the mentality, and
yeah, sticks and
that
stones.
needed to be corrected, right? It did, because people needed to realize that people can have psychological issues from words, and this needs to
Mm.
be respected. And when someone's having that, we need to figure out, are they actually just a bit sad, or has some damage been done to that person's psyche or whatever? Does it need to be some therapeutic thing here? Do you need to sit with them and get to the bottom of this so they can feel better and go on with their day again, right? Not
Mm.
necessarily from a therapist, but just a parent who's geared to understand what just having a bad day is, and also what someone who is genuinely suffering mentally looks like. That's important. So we needed that. But now it seems like, to me, there's been an overcorrection, and there are people out there who, they're being encouraged to obsess over themselves and how they feel, and it's leading people to just I guess the line between feeling a bit shit because you've done something really difficult and actually suffering, the line is very blurry right now, I think, and a lot of people don't really
Mm.
know the difference. So to put it into context of what, animal rights people, I feel like there are a lot of animal rights people who, we do what we do and it's really hard, and obviously it's painful to do and see what we see. But we keep going because it's important. A lot of people tap
Mm.
out really a lot quicker than they would have done 10 years ago, because they've been encouraged by society to be, self-care and all this stuff, where it's like, I don't think you'd really reached that point where you needed to tap out yet. I feel like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you take breaks or whatever, people
Well,
tap out for like 6 months,
yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah, and
you know,
I yeah, no, I get what you mean. I do think
just let me just sorry, summarize before you go. What I'm saying is, I
okay, yeah.
worry that I worry about creating, I don't want to create snowflakes, right? That's what I
Yeah,
worry about.
yeah.
So when you get kids thinking about how they feel too much, you end up with people that, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of heat, and they melt. We need
mm,
people to
mm.
be aware of how they feel and able to deal with problems. But we also need people to
Yeah,
still be fucking tough. Otherwise, no one's going to get anything done ever, and they're going to constantly take sick days because they wake up with a bad mood. That's what I worry about.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like we need to try and reframe self-care so
Right.
that um like resilience is a form of self-care as well, right? Like building
Right.
resilience is a form of self-care. So like you can see it as self-care to withdraw from a negative stimuli, and sometimes that is the correct thing to do.
Right.
But that seems to me, putting aside the times when that is genuinely a good thing to do, there is also another category of times when that is in the short term, maybe it's good to do,
Mm, mm.
because you stop feeling bad about that thing. But in the long term, being able to actually bear some negative stimuli
Right.
will build resilience over time. So in the long run, you will maybe have being able to, better mental health because you won't be as susceptible to those negative stimuli, if you
Well,
get
yeah,
what I
you
mean.
need to you build a resistance. This is the point. But
Yeah.
I worry that
It's a bit
I
yeah.
worry that a lot of people are bypassing that section completely because the whole, excuse me, the whole messaging that we grew up with, or at least I grew up with, was don't be a pussy, toughen up,
Mm,
right? Now, that was the only message. So that was not good. And now the only message is your feelings are valid and you
yeah.
should go into them. Well, there needs to be somewhere in the middle. At some days you need to be told toughen up, stop being soft, and other days you need to be told
Mm,
you look like you're really struggling, maybe take a day off. It can't just be
yeah.
always take a day off or always toughen up. And I feel like right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
where we're at is whenever someone says they're struggling, everyone's like, oh, maybe you should stop doing that thing. It's like, no, maybe you should toughen up a little bit and keep going
Mm,
and see how it goes, right?
yeah. So it's like introducing the concept of anti-fragility into the self-care space
Basically,
because
yeah.
so for anyone that doesn't know, anti-fragility is this it anti-fragility is like a quality of a system where low level frustrations in the system will actually build strength. So, the best example is the immune system. So, the immune system gets better from having battles in it, right?
Good
Being
example.
exposed to negative things like bacteria or a virus or something like that. And we build immunity through that.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that big things can come along and wipe you out. They can, if you get
Mm,
smallpox, you're probably fucked.
right.
Um, Same thing with muscles. If you go to the gym and expose your muscles to a low to medium level of discomfort and sort of frustration,
Mm.
or however you call it. I don't know the actual biological process for
Resistance.
muscle building. Yeah, exactly. Then you will build strength over time. But obviously, if you do this massive shock and overdo it,
Yeah,
then
you're
obviously you're
fucked.
going to damage your
Yeah.
muscles. Yeah, exactly. But the concept of anti-fragility is just building resilience over time from low level exposure to negative sort of
So
inputs.
that's a good thing to teach kids
Um,
too. So it would be, yeah, combining those things together. The being aware of your mind and that you're not in control of it, being aware and in
mm,
touch with your feelings, and that if you're angry, you should be aware that you're angry so that you can act accordingly. Maybe remove yourself from the conversation or learn to control your anger better because you know you're
yeah,
angry. And then this anti-fragility thing. And if something is difficult, it doesn't mean you quit. It's good for you to do things that make you feel stressed and anxious and things like that because eventually they won't make you feel that way. But then obviously noting that if after a very, very long time it is still making you feel that way, maybe it starts to question whether or not it's something you should continue doing. You know, that there
yeah,
is
yeah,
definitely a
yeah, yeah.
limit to how long you expose yourself to stuff that if it doesn't get any better, then clearly it's something that you probably need to stop doing, right? So,
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
limits
yeah,
to
yeah.
these things, but yeah, still,
So,
get on with it.
mm, so I've
Toughen
got
up, kiddo.
nut up or shut up.
Yeah.
So I've got two other things
Oh,
that are
nice.
still in the self-development thing, and then I've got one other point
Okay,
of category of things after.
cool.
So
Oh,
still
one of
in
the category of
self-development.
okay, all right, let's go. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but it's just the last
that's
one.
okay. Yeah, I'm
Um,
interested. Let's go.
so in self-development, I've got two other things. One of them I thought that falls within that is like ethics and virtue.
Okay.
So um, having a space in a class where kids can discuss ethical issues and just completely explore them. You know, it could be veganism or euthanasia or adultery or, you know, all of these sorts of things. And kids share their different perspectives on them.
Mm,
The teachers, you know, put questions to them, you know, give a bit of pushback to the kids, you know, gently, just to see, you know, if the kids respond to it and stuff.
right,
And the virtue part comes in on getting the kids to explore what it means to be a good person and to act in a good way.
right,
Um, I think opening these discussions in a somewhat formal but exploratory environment would be really, like, one, interesting for kids, but also like good for them to start exploring morality early on,
right.
because often morality is just something at the moment, for a lot of people, is something that you just absorb from other people around you.
Yeah,
You kind of just get it from osmosis from the culture around you.
yeah.
Maybe sometimes you're exposed to things that change your mind on specific issues, but actually discussing it and talking about it in a holistic and sort of rigorous way, it's not really something that, you know, um, well, it's definitely not mandatory in schools, and I think
No.
that sort of thing should be.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is something that I actually did in philosophy in college, in philosophy class. They would bring up a topic and then they would have us all share our opinions on it, and then the teacher would be pushing back. And
Mm,
also when someone would say something, she would say, "Oh, this what you've just said is in this school of philosophy, and the most famous person to have said something similar to that is this person,
right.
and
Yeah.
you should maybe read more of that so you can learn, you know, if you agree more." And this
Mm,
was really, really interesting to me, and I think kids would like that too. You just, I'd be really cool. I'd really. They do that on YouTube sometimes. Some channels they pick a group of kids and they ask them questions and see what they say,
mm,
and just for fun. But no, this should be something they do regularly. This should be a
yeah.
daily
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
activity they do to learn what they believe, and then people ask, "Why do you believe that?" And I don't really know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then they can be, you know, say, "Oh, you're." Imagine a kid being told what you believe is similar to Kant, this guy Kant,
Yeah.
and he said all these different things, and you find some kid's book for Kant. I'm sure there's something somewhere built for Kant. You should read that,
Yeah.
or you should check this guy out. Maybe you agree with, and they come back and like, yeah, I actually think that I agree with a lot more, and they hone
Yeah.
their skills and their yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
Give them like a little like book like Kant for kids, so you can become a little Kant.
They most likely already are little cants, but yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the last one I had in self development, which again sounds a bit woo woo, but
Bit
I
wanky.
actually think it would be, yeah, it sounds a bit wanky, but I think it would actually be really good. So I didn't know how else to call it, so I just called it How to Heal,
Oh God.
which sounds
Oh God.
so wanky. But this one, I actually think like it's very rational thing to teach kids. When I say
Self
how to
care.
heal, I don't mean go get a plaster,
No, you mean
you
self
know.
care.
Well, no, it's stuff like
Netflix and
um
vegan ice cream.
no, it's teaching kids about stuff like, like how to identify bad patterns of thinking or things,
Oh man.
you know,
I'm just choking on water. Don't mind me.
maybe you need to learn how to heal, you
I
fucking
need to heal
pussy.
my
Um,
bitch ass throat, man.
yeah. So no, it's like how to identify an issue in your mind, because I think this how to heal thing, it's more of a mental thing. It's not really a physical thing. If you need to heal physically, then go to the fucking doctor. But it's more of a mental thing.
Okay.
So how to identify what an issue may be in your mind, and then
Okay.
understanding the appropriate places of how to find out ways of fixing that.
Okay.
So, understanding the different forms of therapy that there may be, like talk therapy or other forms of therapy, when are those are things that are appropriate to try and seek out? Um, it may also fall into conflict resolution, because also a conflict you may have with someone can cause you to have like some form of ongoing mental upset or even like long-term trauma.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like I feel like those are valuable things to
I'm
learn.
in two minds on this one
Why?
because again, I worry that if you tell kids that there are these options for the different things they got in their heads and therapy and things like that, you're going to potentially create generations that are completely dependent on
Well, No, because part of this is teaching them when it's appropriate to. So part of this how to heal would be understanding when is it something that I can personally get over something and try and build resilience, and when is it actually identifying, no, actually I have an issue here and I need outside help. Like that would be a core part of
Right,
this.
then okay, but still, it seems like how many people did you grow up with that got therapy as kids that you know of?
No, no, but this isn't telling kids to go to therapy. This is like equipping them for the long term. So they may
Right.
not put this into play until they're adults, right?
I just worry it's my similar
So
thing to earlier. I know logically, theoretically, it makes sense to have kids understand this
yeah.
stuff, but in reality, I just worry that we just it would create generations of kids of people who are dependent on psychiatrists and therapists to get through life, and that doesn't. I mean,
Well,
so I think there is a certain, like I said earlier, the whole pull
yeah.
your bootstraps up and get on with it mentality definitely isn't right 100% of the time. But it is also pretty useful because the world is a shitty place, and
Yeah.
it's not going to get any less shitty. It's you are going to go through the shit. So it's probably better
But
to
it
you know prepare them for that as opposed to telling them that you should you know
but wouldn't that be a decent like thing to incorporate into a class on how to heal, right?
I don't know. I
Like
just worry that it'd be in therapy like
ways of
5 times a week
understanding.
because they'd be like
Well,
everything's so
no, but
hard.
therapy is something external to yourself. You can also equip them with the tools of being
Right.
able to work through things on their own, right?
Yeah.
And that would be something I think that would be put forward in saying this is the primary thing that you should be focusing on, and only go to external things when you feel like it's serious enough that you need it. So
Yeah.
like
So what do you mean
like
by
you
work on
like
that? What things do they need to work on? Give an example of something that you want them to learn how to work on themselves.
Well, so one example is like social media. So, if a kid is getting like bullied online, a lot of kids would not know how to deal with that,
Right.
right? But if they're given the tools of how to like think about these
Mm,
things, and how to, okay, I'm being bullied online and it's making me feel this way.
right.
Is that something that I can like, um, is that something that I can like understand and find a solution for on my own, or is it something I need to tell my parents about or my school about? Like
Right.
all of these sorts of things, I think would be really useful. I'm
Right.
not saying it's
Okay.
going to be perfect. Every kid is going to be able to do that in a mature
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah.
but starting the conversation is going to be really good, I think.
Yeah. I
Um,
wouldn't put this in the category of healing. I put this more in the category of like knowing, like they want them to know themselves and know how they feel, and critical thinking. Because when you apply critical thinking to this situation, they start to realize that social
mm,
hierarchies and likes and shares and all this kind of stuff really ultimately isn't going to impact their life. It impacts them emotionally, but when you think about it critically,
mm.
it's not that big of a deal. So I think it's more like that. I don't think this is a healing thing necessarily to me.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, I just came up with the name "How to Heal," and it's like a
Okay.
wanky sort of type. Like you can, there can be a better name for it. I'm just saying these are the sort
Sure.
of
Okay.
tools I think we should equip kids with. The name for it is not
Yeah, I
important.
get. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so fine. Yeah, that was maybe
Yeah,
me just getting a bit
yeah,
mixed
yeah,
up.
yeah.
And but about the professional help thing, it's not that I don't want kids to get the professional help if they need it. It's just that I worry that kids. I mean, look what. Oh God, do we have to go here? I mean, okay, I'll put it this
Well, we
way.
don't. You're
I'm
taking
gonna
us
have
there.
to like. Okay, I'll use an example that's not necessarily real life, but if you okay, you'll see what I'm getting at. If you tell a kid, I don't know what age, whatever, let's say that impressionable age. I don't know what age we're even talking about here. By the way, if we're talking about young teenagers, then I think teaching them about what therapy is important because that's probably the time where they most likely need it in their life, right? If they're going to need
Yeah.
it at any point.
Well, the
Um,
things I've been talking about, I think they can be applied. It depends on the topic, but
right.
a lot of them can be applied both in like primary and secondary school,
Okay.
but they would be taught in different ways,
Okay.
obviously. So like
Okay.
when you're talking in primary school, you probably wouldn't talk to them about financial literacy, right? Like it's
No,
just
no, no,
not
no, no,
appropriate
no.
at that time.
So
But secondary school, that's when you start to
let me just
introduce
finish,
that.
let me get this point out of my head. Right.
Right.
So young teenagers through to late teens, hormones are crazy, life is confusing.
Yeah.
Some of them think they like the same sex, some of them, and they don't, and
Yeah.
they maybe do again, and they don't know what they fancy, or maybe they feel some way about a cucumber. It's a confusing time, right? They don't know what the fuck is going on. So that time, having not even a therapist, just someone who's appointed to be there for kids to talk to, and during that time, very, very important. And they should be made aware that, hey, here's what's going on with you right now. It's very confusing. Just talk to this person. They know everything about it. That's really important. My concern about doing this kind of similar thing with the really young ones when they're really impressionable is that if you tell them they can become a unicorn, then they're going to want everybody to say they're a unicorn. If you tell them that their name can be, they can go from a he or a she to now become a sparkle twig, then they're going to choose to become sparkle twig. Like this is my concern with teaching very young impressionable kids things about therapy, for example, because then they're going to want it immediately. Oh, I can get that, and then they're going to go and get that, and then it's going to get all a bit messy. You know what I mean?
Well, no, but the way I would envision like this sort of teaching would be to get kids to understand that they are susceptible to those sorts of things. So to teach,
but they're like going to be susceptible to you teaching them they're susceptible, which will make them more susceptible, probably.
I don't think so. If you teach a group of kids that, look, you exist in a society, especially a digital society, where there are a lot of trends going around, all of these sorts of stuff, and we can pick specific examples and see what impacts they've had.
Right.
Teach those kids that. I think they'd be less susceptible because they'd be able to think, oh, is that another trend coming around?
But this is for older kids. I'm referring to.
Yeah. This would be. Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, some of these things you'd have to water them down for like primary school kids, or maybe they wouldn't even be appropriate at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about kids in the school system. So some of these, would be appropriate right from the age of 5 years old. And some of them you wouldn't introduce until they're 15, 16.
All right, fine.
So
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't like structured out age.
No, I get it.
For each of
yeah,
these,
I think we're just talking past each other a bit. What I was trying to get at is for little kids, I wouldn't be wanting to tell a little kid that there's the option of getting therapy, because 9 out of 10 of them would go, "I want therapy," and then you'd have a fucking mess on your hands. You'd be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. I think like for kids that age, something more appropriate. And I like obviously I'm not an expert in this, so experts will have like a better idea.
That's why I'm saying this. I am.
Okay. So I think something that you could like something reasonable you could teach a younger kid would be when they have an issue to tell their parents.
Sure.
Right?
Oh yeah, that's
because their
good.
parents will be able to exactly. That would be one useful thing that's very appropriate for a young child. Right.
Yeah.
And then when they're older, when they're a teenager, like 15, 16, then you can develop it more and start to talk about other things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I also just checked the live chat and someone asked me to explain what's on my shirt.
Friend. It's so that people understand that he's not an enemy and he's not a risk.
Yeah.
Because he's special. So he needs to have that, so that people look at it. Go on, explain it.
And it's an advert. It's like, if you want a friend, I'm here.
Friend.
No, it's a t-shirt from a sanctuary that I volunteer at and go to like fairly regularly, which is called Friend. So because it says friend and then it's animal rescue or something. I can't remember what it says around the thing, but it's a Ramones rip-off thing.
Oh yeah, it's so funny because I remember I told you this a while ago. So off topic, but basically we were picking Lawrence up, and he'd got out of the train, and we were waiting outside the train station. And Lawrence has a face that when he's just like got this kind of basic face, when people have got bitch
like
face,
the resting face.
People have got resting
face.
bitch face where they look angry all the time. Unfortunately for Lawrence, his resting face is kind of a word we use in England is gormless, which is basically it means they don't really look like he's with it. It doesn't look like he knows what's going on when he's resting, which is funny because it's just. But then you see him come out of the train station, right, guys, and he's got this t-shirt on, friend, and he's looking like really confused and kind of like gormless. It's just the whole image is brilliant because the t-shirt. It's like he's like basically.
It's like
he needs a carer, basically. That's what he looks like.
I was literally about to say that's the sort of person you see coming out of a train station and expect a carer to come out after them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, brilliant. That was a good moment.
It's like, why has he not got high vis on over that friend shirt?
I wish I'd have filmed it because it did look really funny. Just have you come out and just not know where you were going or anything, and just with the t-shirt, man, brilliant. All right, enough ableism. Let's get back to the
So yeah, the last one. So this last one I think is quite interesting.
Hmm.
And again, I didn't know what to call it, so I called it situational decision making class. So
Okay.
basically, this one I thought it's maybe a bit like the ethics class, but this one is basically more about teaching kids how to balance different priorities and things in a situation. So let me give you an example. So basically, how I envisage, how do you say that word? How how I envision this
It was a mixture of envision
is
and envisage that you went for.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know which of those words is actually
They're
right
both
in
right, aren't
this.
they?
Are
Envision and
they?
envisage. Yeah. Envision
Yeah.
means no, that's a good
Okay, the
no, no,
way I
that's not a
see this
word. Wait,
happening,
it is a word. Wait.
envision, maybe we're thinking of Eurovision.
Envision is a word. It's to imagine or
And what does that
expect
mean?
something to happen. And envisage means to contemplate or conceive of as a possibility or desirable future event.
Okay, so envisage then
Okay.
the way I
They're
either
they're
way,
very
whatever one's
similar.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way that I see this happening would be you again you get the kids sat down in a room and they'll all have their different, like intellectual well, not intellectual, but like, thought backgrounds, how they
Mm.
think about things. And you basically present them with a situation that they're put in. And they are a specific actor in that situation, and you have to give them a goal that they need to get to,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to work out all the different priorities and all the different things that they need to manage to get that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even throw in like curveballs, like halfway through the situation changes slightly
Okay.
and you have to deal with that. So, and some examples I thought would be good would be kids would have to work through things like a political issue.
Right.
So say you're running a political campaign and one of your like campaigners makes a racist remark
Mm-hmm.
or something that's perceived as racist or something. How do you deal with that?
Right.
Um
Okay.
Another one is like a war situation. So you could even use like modern, I mean, I won't use the modern example that's going on right now because it might trigger YouTube, but like you could use an example
Of the
of
current
like, I don't
news,
know, the
yeah, because
build
they're gonna know about what's
yeah, the
going
current
on.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah, the current news or like the build up to World War II or something. You can present them with this issue and say, look, this is the situation, and you are France or you
Yeah.
are England or something. These are the things that are happening. This is the thing you want to have come out at the end of it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What are the things you're going to balance?
That's
Right.
smart. Yeah. It's a
Another
good
one
idea.
is like a relationship issue. So you're in a relationship with someone and you find out, I don't know, you know, um, something has happened
Getting
and you've
slammed
got
by
an
the neighbor, or
yeah, yeah.
he's been getting slammed by the
Uh,
neighbor. That'd be
yeah,
an interesting
and
one. You're imagine that one, like, to tell that. No, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that with kids. You could do it with older kids, teenagers, like older teenagers, but you wouldn't
yeah,
want to get
yeah,
into
that
any kind of sexual stuff with kids. Ideally,
exactly. Yeah,
discussions
yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
But like, so a relationship one, I can't really come up with a good example. Another one I thought would be interesting is you get put kids in the situation of you are the adult daughter or son, like you're the adult offspring
Oh,
of an elderly person who um is not mentally capable of making decisions anymore, and you are making a decision about whether euthanasia is a good option to take.
okay.
I think that would be a really interesting thing for kids to explore because you'd have to explore things like, um, you know,
The ethics of
like
it.
the
Yeah.
ethics of it, and then also, you've got to like, is there a potential that they're going to come, back?
Mm,
Or I mean, in most situations, they probably won't come back if they're deteriorating near the end of life. But
hmm.
you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
just a few examples of things I think would be interesting to have kids think about, and they range from being a politician to being, in charge of a war situation like a colonel,
Hmm.
to being someone's daughter,
Right.
and they're on, death's door or whatever.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I
So
I
yeah.
had actually we did a bit of this in geography class in my school, high school. Was it high school? It must have been high school. We actually did something like this. We had debates about, so some people were landowners and other people wanted to build on it or something like that, and we had to
Oh,
debate.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
we did
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
something similar to that, but it wasn't enough. You're right. There needs to be more of it. We did. Um, I think I had something similar in college again in philosophy, and
Yeah.
also another cool thing. We actually, I was a part of I was a recruiter, and we used to run these experiments on the big groups of applicants to see who stood out as being the most cooperative or the most
Yeah.
leadership or whatever. And what you described is similar. We'd get them all in a room. They wouldn't know what was going to happen, right? So this would be great for kids. You tell them, okay, everybody, I need you to write down now a famous person you aspire to, somebody you want to be like, somebody you really look up to. And they all write down their famous person. You ask them one by one, who's your famous person, right? So they all say, okay, mine's whatever, mine's this, mine's this, mine's this. And some people say Gandhi, some people say Stephen Hawking, some people say can be alive or dead. Some people might
Yeah. Yeah.
say someone else, some might say whatever, right? Footballers, Ronaldo, for example. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
now you've been in a boat crash, okay? You're on a cruise, the cruise is crashed, you're in a lifeboat, and you're
Mm.
all in it, but only imagine there's 20 of you, only 10 of you can stay in the lifeboat. 10 of you need to be chucked over. Now you are the famous person you chose, and now you all need to discuss why you should stay in the boat or why you should get out. And this helps them
Uh,
understand, right? Because now if you chose Gandhi, I mean, okay, you got to figure out why should I stay? Well, because I can keep everyone peaceful. Why shouldn't I stay? I'm old as fuck.
he's not gonna be a drain on food, is he?
Right, there is that exactly, right? So and what age Gandhi are we talking about? Maybe they can, and someone might go,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're really
Yeah.
old." And they'll go, "No, I'm Gandhi when he was younger." You know what I mean? So they learn how to this is everything.
I'm the white Gandhi.
This is critical, exactly like me. I'm the white guy. You're critical thinking. You've got your problem solving. You've got conflict
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
And this is like obviously a made up situation, but yeah, this
Yeah. But
similar.
no, that's an interesting one to add to like this situation thing, the one of being in a boat. That's an interesting one.
Right, right. So I'd love to do with this with kids. I think they'd
Yeah.
really benefit from it, and I'd love to be there and run this. I used to love running it for adults, to be honest with you. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
and see who stands out and people you'd never
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
And sometimes someone's really quiet for most of it, and then all of a sudden they
Mm.
just come out at the last moment and take over
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everyone else is doing shit, and you're like, wow, never thought that had happened. That guy was chill.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that's really cool. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
sounds really
I,
good.
I I think did you have when you were in school, did you have we used to call them form time or
Yeah.
tutor
Yeah.
time when you come back, from lunch and or it's when you first get in the morning.
Yeah.
So for anyone that maybe doesn't understand what I'm saying in another country, so it's when like you first come into school, you will have a teacher that is like your form teacher. So they don't teach you a subject, they're more like pastoral. So they like take your register. If you have like personal issues that need to be communicated at school, you go to them,
Right.
stuff like that. And you see them every morning with your class, and you see them in my school, it was anyway, you see them
Mhm.
also in the afternoon. And often actually sometimes they just let the kids like talk amongst themselves,
Mhm.
but I sometimes had some form teachers that would do exercises with us, not physical, but like like we would do like sometimes they get like a crossword up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we do a crossword together. One thing one thing
It's just
one
the
thing
way
I
you
was
said it,
thinking.
as if physical would have been an issue. You're like, no, not physical. It's not physical, okay? Like, why? Okay, go on. Sorry, it was really funny.
But like I was thinking, like some of the things that we've been talking about could be incorporated into those.
Right.
So like, every Wednesday on afternoon in form time, it's devoted to dealing with a situation. And the whole class thinks about this one situation of like you're in a boat and Gandhi's there or
Mm,
something. Um, Another thing I actually did do when I was at school, one of my form tutors did do, is every afternoon form time we would look through the news, and the form tutor would pick one news story of the day, and we would discuss it as a class.
right.
And
Nice.
it would range from like the local news, like Gregory down the road, his dog has got cancer or something,
Right.
to there's like some coup happened in another country somewhere.
Right. Right.
Um and that was quite interesting, or like some country has just voted for same-sex marriage or denied same-sex marriage or
Mm,
something like that.
right.
um
Yeah.
I think that could be really cool for kids as well, just to analyze current events.
Right. Right. For sure. Yeah. For the older ones, for sure. For the older ones, that are
Yeah,
like,
yeah, older
yeah.
ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I know. I agree. I agree. I think that'd be really good for them. For pretty
Yeah.
much everything we just said, and all these different examples, I think
Yeah.
would be awesome for them. Is that the end of your list?
Yeah. 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 That was everything. Yeah.
There's only one thing I'd add that I don't think younger kids should be getting taught. I think I'm pretty solid on this. I actually
But you think the older one should?
no. I don't think younger kids should be being taught some. I'm going to say what I don't think they should be being taught. So in I think in the UK and in the USA now, they're talking about teaching kids as young as, I mean, we covered this, I think, but we didn't release the podcast. But they're talking about, they want to teach kids as young as 3 or 4 about romantic relationships, and
Mm.
they want to start introducing them to those concepts. I think whether it's straight, gay, or whatever, I just think that should be completely out of any curriculum until they get to, I probably would put it 12, 11 at the absolute least, I would
I
say.
think I think there, so I don't know, yeah, I don't know about 3 or 4, but I think when kids are getting to like 7 or 8, I think there is some value for a few reasons. But it would be basic education. And I actually got this sort of education when I was in
Like what?
primary school.
What were you taught at 7 or 8?
Well, so there's a few things. So first one is that boys will start having wet dreams. So it helps them understand
At
that.
7?
Some girls, yeah, some do. Some girls get periods very early as well, especially in the modern environment with a lot of the stuff that's going around in, like water or food, in the food and stuff and chemicals in the environment.
What do you mean? What does that
Um,
mean? It makes it happen
well,
sooner?
yeah, some girls are getting earlier periods.
I don't know
I
what
don't
it is.
fully understand the reasons. I've heard. I don't know if this is like actual vegan propaganda, but I've heard from some people that drinking cow's milk has actually caused girls to have earlier
Okay.
periods
But look,
because of the hormones in it.
but it's not
Um,
normal for either of these things to happen to 7 or 8 year olds. These are going to be isolated incidences, right?
I'm not sure how common it is, but I think there is a basic education about the reproductive system is useful. I mean, you don't have to talk about romantic stuff, yeah, but understanding a basics of the reproductive system, and also it can be useful because some kids that are abused at home don't understand that some of the things their parents or relatives or whoever carer are abusing them in some way, they
Right.
don't understand it's abuse until they're taught that that's a sexual thing that
Yeah.
shouldn't be done between kids and
Well, it needs
adults.
to be.
So I think there's some wisdom.
That's part of it, but that's part of a wider conversation about that they have bodily autonomy, and
Mm.
they don't ever have to do anything with somebody without
Yes, but
physical contact without consent.
they I think there needs to be emphasis put on what is sexual and what is not. So they need to have some basic understanding of sexual things for them to understand that that's kind of in a different category.
I
Because there's a
yeah.
difference between hugging your nan with when you didn't want to because she wants to hug you, and your granddad,
Yeah, sure. So
touching your tackle a bit too long when you're having a bath or
sure, but these
something.
things can be taught without the need to teach them about the whole, the reproductive systems and all these things. Like I feel like when you start introducing children to all these concepts, you're taking away an innocence of their childhood that they deserve to have for as long as possible. Because trust me, like we both know, the majority of their lives, that innocence is gone. Right.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
try and steal it from them as young as that? There is a way you can tell. What you just said is important. And the way to tell them that is to literally just show them on a doll, or show them the parts of the
Mm-mm.
body which are off limits to be touched. Right. And
Mm.
when they ask why, they don't need to know why. They're private. These are your private areas that they're for you,
Well,
and
but
they
the thing
shouldn't be
is,
touched. That's the simpleness of it.
Well, but the thing is kids are going to want to know why. They're going to keep asking. So I think having
You,
a having
they
a
ask why.
a
Okay,
basic.
but they ask why. They ask why for a lot of things, and there are a lot of things we say we don't answer because we protect them, because we protect their innocence, because we want to let them be innocent for as long as possible.
True, but I think stuff like this, when it can actually, because there's a difference between protecting someone's innocence and protecting them, right? Like them being able to have a basic. I'm not saying teach them everything about bumming and blowjobs and stuff like that. I'm just basic understanding of a reproductive system and things that might be happening to them. Also teaching them, about like hairs and stuff, because some kids do get, like they enter puberty early. Some kids do. So like
Yeah, I know.
7 or 8, they do start to get hairs and stuff. Like I went through this education. I thought it was valuable. It gave me a basic understanding. again, I understand what you mean. In some places, it goes to excess.
Yeah.
Um, but I
I
think
don't know, dude. I feel like,
maintaining a
yeah,
basic level is important, I
I
think.
feel like what you're running the risk of here is that, okay, in a class of 30, one kid might start growing pubic hair. Why
Mm,
does the class of 29 need to understand this right now because one kid had it? Like, I think it's, we need to be careful of okay, some kids are more mature, so every other kid needs to become more mature with them. Um, and this is kind of what's been happening in, I've read some stories about some schools where one kid has, for example, the gay parents. So now they have to do a full class on what it means, and a romance between men and women, romance between men and men, romance.
mm,
And it's like, no, you didn't have to do that. You didn't. You could just tell the kids, yeah, this is just part of life. Sometimes people choose to do that. Sometimes people are this way.
yeah, yeah,
And then we're not going to get further into it because your children just, it's fine. Don't be mean to them. Be nice. It's just different. Everyone's
mm,
different. We're all unique. Next. You don't
yeah.
need to go into a
But that,
balls deep discussion
no,
about
I
what
know,
this
but
is and
that
why, right?
no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we don't need to go balls deep and talk about blowjobs and anal and stuff like that. I'm saying a basic.
Trying to get
So
this
what
video
you just
demonetized, huh?
but so but what I think we are I think there is differences in what we're saying, but I think
Okay.
we've got overlap because
Yeah.
if I was designing the the curriculum for this sex education for kids, like young kids, and I was to introduce the topic of homosexuality, I would keep it as basic as that. I wouldn't go into, all of this stuff about like the intimate, relationships between men and women and women. I would just like keep it basic and say, like, same sex attraction exists. Some of the parent couples you will see will be man, man, woman, woman. It's not a reason to bully anyone for it. It's different, but it's not wrong or bad. And just keep it like that. And I think it's the same with the other stuff I've been talking about. Just basic stuff like some of you may be experiencing getting hair in places. That's completely normal. It's something that just happens. Maybe go into it a tiny bit more, but you don't need to do more like,
But you were talking about a minute ago, you were like, we need to teach them about the reproductive system.
Yeah, but I mean basic. So
Like
like
what?
if a woman like is starting to get periods, you just say once a month, like women, so the girls in the room. So when I was at school, they actually separated us off. So
Yeah.
certain times the girls would be taken into a different room and they would have a specific women
Right, right.
girls
Yeah.
version. But when I say basic about the reproductive system, I literally just mean, right, some of you are getting to the age where you may have
Right.
already or may start to experience bleeding once a month. This is
Okay.
completely normal.
So I
Tell
okay,
your
okay, okay.
mother and father about it when it happens.
So I don't know
I
how
mean
we got
basic stuff
here.
like
Because
that.
my thing wasn't ever to not teach them about um things that might be happening to them at that moment necessarily. My thing was to stop not to teach them about romantic relationships at that age. To have them to, because the thing is, okay, so teaching somebody, if there's a room of people and there's 30 of them,
Yeah.
and let's say 5 or 10 of them might already start, if we can figure out the ages where a good chunk of the people are going to start going through these things, then it's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
wise to start telling them that it's okay, it's normal, blah blah blah. My
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
is teaching kids about straight relationships or gay relationships or just romance. I feel like you are taking away the kids' innocence in that when they meet somebody when they're a kid, they're not interested in whether or not that person wants to fuck them. They're interested in,
Mm.
are we going to be friends? Whether that's a guy or a girl, they don't care. It's just that innocence of,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
else would I want from you? The second you tell a kid that there is more than that to life, you take that away. The innocence is gone, right? And that's what
I
I'm.
don't necess
I
I don't necessarily think so because I got taught about that stuff and so when I was a kid I was taught that like sexual attraction is something you're probably not going to experience now and you won't understand it, but later you will probably become attracted to women and women will probably become attracted to
I
you.
just don't think that's. I don't
And
think that's important or relevant to tell to a child, like a little child.
I think it's a bit of information kids can have in the back of their mind so that once it starts happening to them, they understand what's
They
happening.
should be.
I don't
They
think
should
it
be
remo
taught at the age where it actually is important for
I
them
th-
to know it.
I
I
think
think.
I think it's I don't think we need to teach kids when they're like 4 or 5 about this, but I think it's useful to teach them just before the time when it's likely to happen to
Right.
them,
So
so
around
that they can
11, 12, like I
contextualize it.
said. That's what I said. That's when they're actually when things are kicking up a notch. That's when
I,
they're going to start looking at the
I
opposite sex in that way.
yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly like what the average age is when kids
Yeah.
start
Well, we agree anyway that it
like.
should be just before when that things kick off.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think
yeah.
that's at
I
7 and 8,
think like
man. I think at 7 and 8,
I
we should be doing everything possible to maintain as much innocence in them as possible, and help them
I
have
think
like
just
a healthy
I
childhood.
think just like mentioning it in a subtle way
I don't even want to.
is fine for that
I'm
age.
not behind that.
No, because the thing is, I don't see how it's going to tangibly take away from their innocence because they've just been given a bit of information, but at that age, they don't care about that stuff. So literally, as soon as they leave the classroom, they'll have the bit of information, but it's not going to be at the forefront of their mind.
I don't know,
When they
man.
go and see their female friends that playtime, they're not going to be then thinking, "Oh, maybe I'm attracted to you."
They
These
are.
feelings are just going to
They are,
no, that
because they're
no, the
sponges. They
feelings are
take everything you say and they take it super to heart. So you start to, like I told you,
I
tell them a 7 or 8 year old that they can be a unicorn. They're going to want to be a unicorn. Tell a 7 or 8 year old you might have this, sexual feelings for someone. They're
mm,
going to start thinking a lot about it. Just leave them alone with the sex stuff. Let them be kids. Let them just be like, oh, my friends are my friends, and that's all we are
mm,
until it gets close to that time where they start having those feelings. Then you tell
yeah,
them
yeah.
they're perfectly normal, everything's fine, things are going to change for you now, and then you drip feed them. But like, I wouldn't plant
Yeah.
any of these seeds
I
anywhere
think I
near
think we're say
seven
I
or
think we're
eight or
basically
younger.
yeah, I think we're basically
Yeah.
saying the same thing.
Okay.
We just need to know like when is the average age, and
Yeah.
then we
All right.
can
All right.
both say, bang, this is when we put it
Well, the
in.
reason I
But
brought
we're
this up
basically saying the same
the,
thing.
the reason I
I
brought this
think
up is because
yeah, yeah.
it is being discussed a lot as far as I can see in UK curriculum, and obviously US and Canada, and a lot of Western. When I say Western, I don't know. There is a specific kind of agenda in like certain Western countries. It's not just those ones. There's probably others as well, where it's I suppose progressive to the level where it's starting to become a bit ludicrous, right?
Mm,
We're introducing very, very, very young children to very, very, very adult concepts like like I said, this isn't just LGBT stuff, it's also straight stuff. And there's been rightly pointed out that kids have been being taught straight romance education from a very young age for
yeah.
a very long time. And it brought it to my attention, and I thought, wait a minute, these people are right. The advocates, LGBT advocates, they're right. That's also wrong. Little kids shouldn't be being taught about men and women in romance. They shouldn't be being taught about anyone in romance because they're little fucking kids. Let them be little
Mm,
kids for as long as possible. Don't introduce them to any form of romance until things start, like I said, kicking off a notch. And I'm kind of happy that I've seen these discussions, and the conservatives get really upset because they don't want the kids being
yeah.
taught about gay stuff. And it's like, well, you're hypocrites because you've been teaching them about straight stuff for all this time.
Mm,
Now I've brought to the point where I'm like, they're both right in that,
mm,
the conservatives are right that, gay stuff shouldn't get taught to kids, and the LGBT are right that, well, you're teaching them straight. No, leave them alone. Everyone, all of you,
mm,
back off them and just let them have a normal little childhood, like where they can just be
yeah, yeah.
innocent until for as long as possible. The more
Yeah. I think
the more the world's going tits
yeah.
up, the more I see kids are less and less innocent day by day, and it's really
Yeah,
sad.
yeah, yeah.
It's really, really, really
Yeah.
fucking depressing.
No, I understand what you mean. Like I am worried about the environment that kids are growing up in now.
Mm.
I think I just don't think that having a like basic and like responsibly put together like sex education
You
and
want to
things
groom them.
related
You want
to
to groom
that.
kids. That's
Yeah,
it. It's
exactly.
us versus
But
it's me versus you. You're a groomer, and I'm a child protector. That's
yeah,
that's what we are right now.
but I just don't think it's as big a deal because I think kids are going to get exposed to this stuff anyway. Kids always ask, where do
Oh,
babies come from? All of this sort of stuff.
and they're
Like they're
told
going to get
stalk
exposed.
until they're 12. It's a stalk. The stork flies in and drops the baby off, and that's it. You know.
See, well, the thing is, for me, I wasn't taught that. My parents literally just told me how it was when I was a kid. First time I asked, bam,
Now we're
boom.
on to a different topic, because that is where a lot of parents are getting pissed off, because they don't think the school should have the right to tell kids that, but they do have the right because it's their kid. They can do whatever they want. in terms of like, you know,
Well, I
information,
think,
right? That's up to the parents.
yeah, I think I mean, this will be a whole other conversation which we can't get into now,
Yeah.
but then it gets into the line of like, um, how much control should I like? I'm just it's I'm hesitant to say any of this because it's going to open a whole nother
All right. All right.
conversation. Um, but I think sometimes schools should teach things even if parents don't want them to. I don't think parents should
Ah.
have total authoritarian control over their kids. One example, I think kids should be taught about evolution, even if
Mm,
religious people don't want their kids to be taught about evolution,
yeah.
um, as an example. And I think it applies to other things as well.
Right.
Um, but I understand. Whilst I don't think parents should have complete authority over their kids, I also don't think the school should. So I think it is a balance, and we need to have a conversation about when it applies, when it doesn't.
Mm.
But I don't necessarily think that just because parents don't want their kids to be taught um, some types of sex education, I don't think that's a knockdown argument for the kids not being taught that, if you get what I mean. Just like with
No,
evolution and religious
no, that
people.
wasn't what I was saying. But what I was saying was that if a parent wants to tell, if your parents wanted to tell you that, that was their choice to tell
Yeah,
you
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I just don't believe that
Yeah.
should be in the curriculum for children that don't have any concept or any, they, you know, they don't understand it, and they shouldn't be
Yeah.
trying to understand it. They should just be living a life
Yeah,
as
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
kids like these days. Fucking for me, it was Pokemon cards. I'm not interested in what my dick can do. I'm interested in getting a shiny in my next packet of Pokemon cards. Leave me
Yeah, yeah,
alone.
yeah, yeah.
Stop trying to teach me about any relationship. I'm not interested. I'm interested in friendships. I'm interested in friendships,
Yeah,
trading
yeah,
Pokemon cards, playing football. Leave me alone, right? And then
yeah.
I feel today's world, kids have become a bit of a political pawn. Like everybody wants to get a
Yeah,
grip on them and
100%, yeah.
mess with them and indoctrinate them. Fucking hell, just let them play games, teach them the basics of life that we've been through today, like the things they need to succeed and the things they need to be
Yeah,
good
yeah.
people, and leave the stuff, the age appropriate stuff, until they're at the appropriate age. I don't think that's rocket science. I think we
Yeah,
both agree
yeah.
on that, like 100%.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
One
Yeah.
more thing I would add as well would be have the
Fucking hell, you were rushing me
I
for
know, but I
time.
realized
Jesus
we passed the 1
Christ.
hour half mark, and I realized, well, let's just go for 2 hours then,
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever, just close to. We're already doing it now. One more
Yeah, yeah,
thing,
go on.
anyway, around social media, internet, phones. I think in the UK they already banned phones in schools, which should have happened a long time ago. I think they should never
Yeah,
have.
they were banned in my school when I
Right.
was there, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah, banned as in, I mean, okay. I think they could do some system where it's smartphones are banned. I don't think
Well, shall I
kids.
tell you how they did it in my
Yeah,
school?
go on.
Because when I was in school, smartphones didn't exist. So the way it happened in my school is that phones were banned for kids to have in school, but you could bring your phone to school and the reception would put it in a locker for you and you can collect it at the end of the day.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
then
right.
kids, they have their phone to be able to tell their parent,
That's what I'm thinking.
if
Yeah,
they're stuck or so. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
But they can't have it in lessons.
right. So I agree. So that's one thing, and then
Yeah.
yeah, get the internet, the computers, the library computers locked down, which they probably already
Yeah.
do, and just have school as a sanctuary or a sanctum where the external world is it's filtered, right? It's when they're
Mhm.
out in the world, you can't stop it, right? But when they're in the school, it should be, there's, like you said earlier, there's too many distractions. They need minimal distraction. They need a completely secure place where the outside world can get fucked completely. You're
Yeah.
here for this. We're here. We protect you while you're here. This is the safest place, potentially safer than at home for some of these kids. And yeah, I mean, shit's still going to go wrong. They're still going to get
Yeah.
called names, and people are still going to bully and stuff like that. That's a
Yeah.
whole other topic, but at least, yeah, the internet and the outside world should be completely filtered, if not
Yeah.
completely shut off while they're in there. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
been the
Yeah.
case for a lot of the world for a
Yeah.
very long time.
Yeah. And also on a basic level, that would just reduce their screen time as well.
Mm,
Because we all know that kids are going to have a massive screen time anyway.
right.
So taking screens away at school is
Yeah.
like only going to benefit them.
Hell yeah.
Because anything they would do on a screen, they've got fucking loads of time at home to do that.
Of course, yeah, of course. They're going to do all their homework on a computer. They're going to be doing all their YouTube and all that crap on a computer. When they're into
Yeah.
school, I mean, I don't know how many screens they're using in schools these days, if all the kids have tablets or whatever, but
A lot of
they
them, yeah.
probably
A lot,
shouldn't. They
yeah.
probably shouldn't, because you're just creating, I don't know, maybe school should be reverted back to just bare bones, all the basic writing skills, reading skills,
Yeah.
paper, that kind
Wiping your ass with leaves.
of wiping your ass with leaves. Yeah, take it really far back, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. When late in the later stages of me being in school,
It sounds like
they
you
were
cancer or something, bro. The later stages. What is that?
but I didn't know how to phrase it. But you know what they were bringing in is beginning to bring in technologies that kids would use in school, and one of the things they were bringing in was Minecraft.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
really.
And yeah. Just as an example, like now, like a lot of schools they have iPads and shit like
Right.
that. But like the very beginning was when I was just coming out of school, and they were bringing in Minecraft, and I was so pissed that I wasn't one of the people who got to play that in class.
Man, my idea of a fun time at school was after school going to the library and going on the computer because it's the only way I could get internet. And I was one of the early adopters, you would call me, in that time.
Yeah, yeah.
The computers were always free because internet was, what is this, geeks for losers, and I was one of those. I was one of those fucking losers. I was there as much as I possibly could be.
What did you use it for? Just pornography?
No, it's a school computer. But I'll tell you a funny story in a minute. But I mostly used it to just Google things I was interested in. I don't know if it was Google at the time. Ask Jeeves, maybe it was at the time, something like that. Yahoo was another one, and I used to go and look at websites and just games and things like that. And then, I once got caught doing something very funny. I just told Annie this story recently. It almost like ruined my life actually because, but fortunately I got over it. So around that time was when Britney Spears was just coming out real big, like with a Baby One More Time and a couple of the songs around that time. And I was on the computers and I went to whatever image search and I was like, what happens if I put her name in here? What comes up? And it was genuine. I was a kid, so it wasn't anything weird for me. I don't think I'd even started anything like sexual at that point. So I did it and I was just scrolling, OG scrolling back in whatever that must have been, 2001 or something, 2002, whatever. And then the librarian comes in, just loses her fucking mind. You can't look at that. You can't look at that. Oh, that's terrible. That's bad. You can't do that. That is not acceptable. Just flips her shit at me. And I'm sat there like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. And I'm really a kid, So, it was a real moment, a pivotal moment. It could have gone either way. I could have been crushed and my life ruined, or I could have come back. And in the moment, I suddenly went from guilt to realizing, wait a minute, this is a limited search, right? The safe search is on. It's right there on the screen. So this isn't my fault at all. So I went like my little voice, which must have been really squeaky. I was like, look, this is the safe search. This is not bad. This is with the filters. She's wearing clothes. There is nothing here that's wrong. This is not porn or anything. It's not naked ladies or anything. And then she kind of just had a closer look and then was like, okay, but don't do that again, kind of thing. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then that was the end. And it was a moment for me because, as I said, it could have gone one way where I lived my life ashamed of myself and ashamed of what I'm interested in. But actually, it was a moment of strength because I was like, I'm right, and she backed down, and I was like this little kid looking at Britney Spears. Oh man.
And that is where my class for kids on how to heal would come in.
Right.
Because you'd be able to understand, did that experience, you get what
right.
I mean.
And it was important because I genuinely was doing nothing wrong. Even if I was enjoying looking at those photos, she was clothed. These were promotional photos of a singer. There was nothing wrong with what I was doing, So but
and then when she walked away, then you added naked to the search.
Exactly. Yeah. No, what I was doing that was wrong was the magazines that we'd hidden under a hospital. That was the this is mess. That's another story for another day. But yeah, there was a gap under the local hospital that underneath it, literally under the floorboards.
Wait, what do you mean under a hospital?
So okay, this is messed up, right? So basically, there was an old hospital. I still live near it. Actually, my mum lives near it, and it was very old at that time, run down. And under the foundations of it, some of the bricks had come away, So some
Yeah.
older lads had pulled more bricks away, and then there was like you could crawl in underneath the hospital, and there's like a den where you could go hang out. And the
Oh
older
right.
lads, oh, they weren't much older than us, but like yeah, whatever. We were too young to understand porn and stuff, but they weren't.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had all their porno mags in there. It was my mate's brother. And so when we knew they weren't there, because they kicked the shit out of us if they were there and we went,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
would
yeah.
go to the spot and then go in and, and look at the magazines, not understanding why we were looking at them. We just knew we
Yeah, yeah,
shouldn't.
yeah.
You know, there was no feelings or anything. It was just, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's, you know, there was nothing, no
That's so
excitement.
weird. That's so weird that presumably they were old enough to understand what the magazines
Yeah.
were because they put them there.
Yeah.
Is it not a bit weird for just you and all your lad friends to just go around and look at a magazine together?
But we did it because we were curious as to what everything looked like, but we didn't
No, no,
get off
not
on it or
you.
anything.
The
Oh, the older
older,
lads, yeah.
yeah, the older lads. Like, why would they be doing it? I just feel
I don't
like
know, man.
it's a bit like, are they not all getting their like stalks on,
Yeah,
like, and all the lads are just
I
around
think
them?
so. Yeah, I think honestly, I mean, I don't know if I'm just speaking for myself or like for many men out there. I mean, I don't think I ever went through this, but I think a lot of guys go through confusing times, and it's like, because if you're looking at that and there's other guys around, I don't think I ever
Yeah,
did that, but if you were in a dark place with like 3 or 4 guys and looking at that, it must get,
yeah, yeah.
a little bit homoerotic, right? I
Yeah,
imagine.
you just turn to your left and Nigel's 6-inch stalker is right next to you and you think, "Oh, should I?"
Oh no, 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 Jesus, man. But so yeah, and you know what's funny about this hospital thing is you could actually come out of this place under the bricks, and you could go
Mm.
into the a janitor's closet and just go into the hospital. Like I'm not making this up. Insane. And I actually did that a lot. That's how I used
You
to
know,
get out if I wanted to. Couldn't be
you
bothered
know,
crawling.
maybe what it was.
What?
It was actually the janitor's collection,
Yeah.
and the older lads found it and found another way in.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, man. Some of the stuff I don't know how we didn't get arrested. We used to climb. They had ladders onto the roof of the hospital. Just climb up and go running across the roofs. I don't know, dude. It was crazy. I don't know what the hell.
I don't know. I feel like things were less strict back then. You know,
That's
people would
yeah.
just like
Good point.
they'd just be like, it's dumb kids.
Yeah, they didn't give a shit. No one called the police or anything.
Whereas,
Who
yeah,
cares?
whereas now, like the hospital, if like people found out about that, the hospital would get sued to shit because of
Yeah,
health and safety.
yeah. Good old days are definitely gone, man.
Mm,
Well, yeah, well, that's not in the curriculum anyway. If kids go and build a den underneath a hospital and take some
yeah,
porno in there, that wouldn't be in the
exactly.
curriculum. That would be left out for sure.
Yeah,
Although they'd probably figure it out themselves at some point.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
How long have we been going for?
1 hour 52.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was a
sick.
good convo. Lots of
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed going through my list as
it was a
well.
good topic. Yeah, for sure, man. It's nice to do some different, like quite different topics than that we both
Mm,
normally do. So that's why we're doing this. Appreciate it. And we'll do this
mm,
every 2 weeks, roughly every 2 weeks, right? That's what we agreed to for
mm.
people wondering if
Yeah,
how often this is going to be. Roughly every 2 weeks,
yeah, yeah,
and it'll be live always, which
yeah.
gives us
And like we said before, if people have like specific topics they think would be interesting, send them
yeah.
over. I mean, David and I come up with topics ourselves like this one, but there are some that might not occur to us, but might still be
Yeah, shoot
interesting.
some topics over, and we'll see if we are interested in having a go. Because this is a passion project. It's a passion project, and it is also we're passionate about free speech. So we are willing to
Mm,
push the boat out and get into some stuff that is spicy, and we want to because we think it's important. Both of us agree it's important to say the things that we've been being told we shouldn't say, but we don't want to do that every single time. And we definitely
yes,
don't want to make that
yeah,
all that that's it's only part of what we're about. We actually have opinions on stuff that's not that
yeah.
you know spicy.
Sometimes we want to be able to have conversations where our sphincters aren't so tight shut that it takes a day for us to take a shit afterwards.
Yeah, that's a vision. That's a very potent visual I've got now. But yeah, basically that. Yeah. So shoot them over. Interesting ones, potentially controversial ones, things like that. And it's mainly if we actually give enough of a shit, though, to be honest, about the topic. Like
Yep,
this was one that we're both like, yeah, we're both interested in.
it's
If
interesting.
there's
Yeah,
some big spicy thing going on, but neither of us particularly has a skin in the game, then we're probably not going to be interested in touching on it. Just
yeah.
FYI. And I think that's how we'll operate from now on. cheers, everybody. Cheers, Lawrence.
Nice
Good
one.
one.
Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. I wasn't paying at all attention to the chat, so I don't know if people were adding to the conversation.
Ah,
But
they
thanks
were having
everyone for
some
watching.
chats. People have just been mainly listening, to be honest, and not a couple of comments, but mostly
Yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of just hanging out, which is all good and well. It's nice because we're not really doing this. It's not like a proper,
yeah. It's
interactive
more
thing.
casual.
It's it's supposed to be like a podcast. So, but yeah, I had something to say, but I think I just wanted to say thanks everybody for paying attention and having a good time, and get it down in the comments. That's what I wanted to say. Go down in the comment section below the video once it's over and tell us what you thought, because the live chat's great, but the live chat isn't in the comments section, and when the video goes up and there's no comments, it looks like we're both a pair of fucking losers. So get down in the comments and put some comments in there, and then tell YouTube that this is a good video, and maybe they'll promote it a little bit, and everyone wins, right? Yeah, sounds good. Lawrence says yeah.
Yep, nice one. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
yeah.
thanks everybody. Catch you in the next one.